Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever part of the world that you are coming. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever part of the world that you are joining us from. Welcome to this blooming room. My name, as usual, is Coach Chinyere. If you were joining us on YouTube, watching us on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and leave comments accordingly. So we are continuing with our church and sexuality series. I hope you've been enjoying all of our episodes. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and now this is the fourth installation. Episode 1, we talked about ladies first. Episode 2, we talked about brothers. You also have a role to play. Episode 3, we talked about when sex intercourse, when it hurts, reduce libido, what could be the causes of that. And today we're going to be talking about the issues relating to circumcision and how it impacts, influences, or perhaps not, issues relating to intercourse. Okay, are we ready? So we're going to start with a brief history of circumcision. Now, you know that circumcision is not only done to one gender, okay? It happens to the men, it also happens to the women. Yeah? We're going to start with the circumcision that happens in men. How did it start? Where did it start? I know a lot of people who belong to the Christendom might think, oh, it started when Abraham was instructed by God to do it in the Bible. That's where it started. But that's not exactly true. According to history, it is said that, let's start with the reasons why circumcision even occurs. There are different reasons. And it spans across things that have to do with hygiene, things that have to do with transitioning from a youth into manhood, and also religion. So according to the history of how circumcision was practiced and why it was practiced, it is said that it was practiced actually from ancient Egypt, and they did it because they felt it, Algeria and Egypt. Now, they actually did that because they thought that, and they believed at the time that circumcision will make a man clean, because the way circumcision is, there's an extra layer of, I'm talking about male circumcision now, there's an extra layer of skin that it's just like a loose cap on the head of the male member. So it's just loose. So they remove that extra skin because it left so that it leaves behind the shiny, clean top. And in their view, it was hygienic, it made for good aesthetics, and it was also seen as something that meant to keep a man pure. So it is something that has been practiced for a long time, even before the era of Christianity. We're talking about 4,000 or 5,000 BC, before Christ. Thousands of years before Christ. Okay? So now, the Romans came. You know, if you studied history, it was wars upon wars. One time it was the Turks who took over. One time the Greek Empire was very dominant, the Roman Empire, then Christendom pushed in, and Islam, Crusaders pushed in. All of these dynamics also affected the practice and continuity of circumcision. Now, the Romans, when the Greeks had their way and pushed through the Middle Eastern areas where circumcision was being practiced, they considered the practice of circumcision as uncivilization. The Greeks didn't care about all of that. They believed the Greeks actually had a big role to play in issues that have to do with sexuality, pleasure, sensuality. They had a different mindset when it comes to dealing with those things, or how those things should be done or can be done, how pleasure should be expressed and all of that. So they said, no. No cutting, leave it alone. And these created a lot of schisms, especially because right before that time, before the Greeks ran over and took up a lot of territory, what happened was Abraham came into this thing where he got an instruction from God and said, hey, all the men of your household should be and must be circumcised. In God's view, he saw it as a way of separation from the Gentiles. So that instruction was given to the Gentiles, to the Jews, but not the Gentiles, because it is a mark of saying, I belong to God. And you know that the original intention was to save the Jews. Gentiles were not part of this whole setup. Okay? So when the Greeks came and they took over territory, especially areas where the Jews occupied, and when they said, we're not going to have this done in our territories, we outlaw it, it put the Jews in an uncomfortable situation. Do we obey the law, or do we obey the instructions that was given to us by God himself? And so the Jews had to flee. And so they fled into regions like Africa. So when they came into these regions, areas like the Bantu areas of Africa, to settle in an attempt to flee the persecution that they were experiencing from the hands of the Europeans at the time, and to a place where they can express their religion and the practice of circumcision. The Bantus were said to have copied this from them and also continued to practice this act of circumcision. So the mingling of people, and so that region of Africa, and then it spread as well, were able to pick up that practice, and they started to carry out circumcision, and they do continue to carry it out even till today. But it doesn't mean that all over Africa it's been embraced, because there are certain tribes, even in Uganda, where circumcision is not done. So it's a mixed bag. Some are for, some are against. That's a summary of the history of circumcision, male circumcision. Okay, we're talking about way back. What about the women? Because if you look at the books, it says male circumcision. Even for those who are Christians, it was instructions was given to the men. How the women come into the practice of come to experience circumcision and have it as something that is practiced. Now, it's not very clear exactly how female circumcision started, even though it's been said to predate back to ancient Egypt. We're talking about the areas like Sudan. The ancient Egypt was a combination of Sudan and the present day Egypt. Now, all of that area it's said that circumcision was practiced. We're talking about 5th century BC, before Christ, long time before Christ came. So, and then it was practiced, and then during the slave era, when wars would take place and people would be captured as part of the trophies of war, and men would be taken as slaves and taken from one region into the other. What the Romans did was all that were captured, the women, Now listen now, because it's going to come in and it's going to be important when we talk about female circumcision and how it affects pleasure. So now, the Romans gave an instruction that the women slaves should be circumcised. There were two things they wanted to do or gain or achieve by reason of the circumcision of the female slaves. One, reduce their ability to experience pleasure. Pleasure was at the hallmark of the reasoning behind the Romans asking for the women at the time to be circumcised. Two, population control. They don't want no slave babies, because circumcision, the removal, the cutting away of a certain area of a woman's down under. You know, there are two external lips, and then there are two internal ones, and then there's a small hole. I don't want to show you visuals. It might not be palatable to a lot of people, but there are two outer ones. It's called the labia majora and the labia minora, and then you have the two inner ones, and then you have the small one, okay, through which the male member enters. All right. So now, two things, like I said, were supposed to be achieved by virtue of the circumcision: reduce pleasure, population control, no pregnancies. So why generally were women circumcised? We talked about the men, that it was more for hygiene, more for aesthetics, the looks of it, and more for religion. Those were the three major reasonings behind male circumcision. And of course, the transitioning, that's as a mark of the Jews who call it bar mitzvah. That bar mitzvah, the rite of passage from boyhood to manhood, even though there are different ages where circumcision happens, from an infant to someone in their 18s or 20s. So, for the women, why? Why? Number one, circumcision was said to be beneficial for women to reduce their ability to feel pleasure. So they felt that if they cut out the area that was being removed, the clittoirs, which I'm going to call clit, if they cut out the clit, there'll be limited pleasure. The women will not want to go outside and sleep around outside of marriage. It will maintain purity, and it will secure virginity, because virginity was very important. It was like gold. So they felt, hey, how do we control the urges of those women and they don't go wild, and people start losing their virginity and people start engaging in all manner of pleasure? Let's cut out the thing that would make them feel that pleasure. That was the reasoning behind female circumcision. So for men, it wasn't to reduce pleasure, but for women, it was to reduce pleasure. You see the major difference between the two. Now, the second thing as well that is big on both sides: identity. There are certain regions that the women would probably not be marriageable if they were not circumcised. There's been a lot of awareness, a lot of campaigns to try and cut down these acts, but it's a struggle. But people are slowly. In fact, it's not. The circumcision part is not always the cutting. There's another one where they actually stitch the outer lip and leave just a small hole for PP to come out from. Yeah, just to make sure that no encroaches until the man because they don't want to lose the dowry that the woman could fetch, because virginity was very expensive. And so we have a situation where identity became a big part of circumcision. Now, circumcision to deter coitus is intercourse, to prevent coitus, and also subsequently reduce the chances of falling pregnant. Now, what does religion have to do with female circumcision? Now, it is not exactly clear in scriptures for or against. The same thing also in Islam. But I particularly liked a case study that was done. I'm using Egypt now because it's seen as one of the revered as one of the Asian civilizations and where medicine started from. So there was a very interesting case that occurred in 1996, where the ministry that was responsible, the Ministry of Health, had said no circumcision. There was nowhere in Islam where they said women should be circumcised. And there was just this random, people were just doing circumcisions everywhere and everybody, and they were like trying to put some control, some measure of control to protect the lives of women. And a group of scholars took the Egyptian government to court. A lot of deliberations kept going on and going on and going on. And then the courts made a very remarkable ruling in 1997. The court made a significant ruling in 1997. Now, what the court said was that, just give me a second because I want to read exactly what the ruling said. It says, since circumcision is a surgical procedure for which Islamic law does not provide a rule making it obligatory, it should basically not be carried out except with the aim of medical treatment. Any surgery, regardless of its nature and extent, which is carried out without having the cause of its permissibility, with all of its conditions in their entirety, is considered haram. From the Islamic and the legal point of view, holding fast to the general basis upon which the human right of bodily integrity is ensured, and to the criminalization of any action which is not legally sanctioned and leads to the encroachment of that integrity. That was the ruling of the court. Now, this was in Egypt, but might I also add that a lot of Muslim countries, including Saudi Arabia, do not practice circumcision at all. Let that sink in. Saudi Arabia, one of the most conservative societies, they do not practice female circumcision. And I applaud their stand. So now that we understand the history, the why for the men, the why for the women, how does male circumcision impact a man's coitus, ability to perform or whatever? Now, according to medical journals, now the results of a study that was carried out it says that the main reasons given for preference. Now, it came out that a lot of people actually preferred male circumcision because it had a better appearance. Like I said, aesthetics has always been one of the big things why male circumcision has been embraced right from time. Better hygiene, and it has been better hygiene and reduced risk of infection. It has been said that in areas that are prone for STDs, some of the programs that they do is more circumcision for the men because of the medical benefits. And it enhances sexual activity, including coitus. It makes better for manual stimulation as well. This is what? Across board. Okay? So there is a preference, and also there is not much of a medical implication when it comes to do with a properly done male circumcision. And actually, medical reports have shown that it is good. It's better aesthetically. It's good for stimulation, because that extra skin is taken out and you have a closely attached skin over the head, and when you touch or wherever it's inside of a woman, the sensation is much more heightened. What about the women? What about the women? What happens to the women? Complications are rife for women's circumcision. Hemorrhage, that's bleeding, pain, shock, swelling, infections, problems with urinating, and sometimes some of them can lose their lives in the process. And also there has been known to be long-term PTSD, problems during labor, obstetric lacerations, and also impact when it has to do with sex. So you can weigh the benefits, male and female, and you can see that there is nothing to be gained from the women, from women's circumcision as compared to men. There's decreased sexual satisfaction and also a decrease in desire. Why is there a decrease in desire? Why? Because of the CLIT, the clitoris. Now, for those who don't understand why the clit is so important, the clit is not just for, I told you earlier that I was going to come back to it when I told you about the ancient Romans saying the court was important for the women slaves because they wanted to reduce their ability to feel pleasure during coitus and to control population increase. The reason being that over time, people have always thought that the clit is just there, just for pleasure. But actually, it has been proven and shown by studies now that the clit has dual benefits. It's beneficial for recreation, that's pleasure. It's also beneficial for procreation, that's reproduction. So it has dual effect. It is the CLIT is like when you build a house, you've done all your wiring, but if all of that wiring is not connected to the pole, for those of us back in Nigeria, the electrical poles outside that from where you receive from the government, those are just wires. And so when you disconnect those wires from the main pole where the electricity is supposed to be coming from, that's what happens when circumcision happens in females. And so there is that flow is lost. So reproductive health specialists are now counseling that couples should practice the act of stimulating the clit. Because what has been shown to happen is, because when a man pours into a woman during coitus, all of that semen, they just rush in. But not all of them have the same speed of movement. Some are fast and some take their time. So it is said that when that stimulation happens, the clit stimulation happens, what happens is the uterus adjusts its angle in such a way as to make sure that all of those ones that like to rush in, they are waiting for those ones that are selected. Many are called, but few are chosen. So the chosen ones will rush, they want to get to the fallopian tubes, but the uterus will adjust itself. What is she? Like it's dodging a bullet. And you guys go somewhere else. And then it will not wait for those ones that are just, the kingpins, the ones who have been called and they understand the assignment. They don't need to rush. The selected ones will find their way slowly but surely to where the fallopian tubes are, where the eggs are waiting. Mamma mia. And then they connect. So this clit stimulation, when it is present, actually helps this process to happen. So as you can see, it is important for not just pleasure, because that contraction of the VJ, the uterus, all of the pelvic area plays a role. Because when a woman is experiencing that sensation, she's just adjusting, her body is contracting, holding the man in. Things are adjusting themselves to ensure that there is a flow and there is a positioning for fertilization and possibility of becoming pregnant. Okay? So it's important. Now, many people, as much as we say, people caught, yes. But there are those who practice things, because some people are so into the whole improving experiences. There's a tribe called the Baguda tribe of Uganda. Baguda tribe, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, of Uganda. They actually, the two outer lip, I call the labia minora. They do elongation. It's been said to be not advised, but just to show you how far people have gone. Some people don't want you to experience it, others want to experience it. It's a thing with pleasure. So now you understand the pros and the cons and how it plays and how it affects and how it impacts. So we must understand that it is important, very, very important, that we protect the female. I know someone who actually was very upset with their mother-in-law for cutting their wife when she was smaller, when she was younger, like a baby. I always say, thank God, Mom, for not doing that. So it is important that you understand pleasure. I don't think any man just wants a woman just lying there and just, are you done? Have you emptied yourself? I want to sleep. Hurry up and calm down. I don't think any man wants that. You want to hear the sounds, you want to see the movements, you want the holding and all that. You want to participate. You want your woman to participate. But how can she when she has limited feeling down there? It's more like a task, like a duty. So please, let's respect our bodies and do the right thing, and understand that if God put it there, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. Now, there are those who don't circumcise the men. I mean, it's optional. But I've just said for those who do, the benefits of it, and that medically it's been proven that it's not a biggie for a man because it's outside, but for a woman it's connected to the inside, so they're different. So I hope I've helped you today. I hope we've been educated. Try to make it as interesting as possible. So the church won't tell you this, but hey, somebody has to. Have a good night. God bless you, and thanks for taking our time to watch. Episode 5 is on the way. Have a good night. Bye.